Welcome to Financial Strategies with Andrew Agemy in Connecticut and Daniel Agemy in Colorado.
And Daniel, you know why she had the trust, don't you?
No, why is that?
Because her sister-in-law got disinherited, and her siblings, the sister-in-law and her siblings, got all disinherited when her parents had remarried after the death of the other spouse. I'm Andrew Agemy.
And I'm Daniel Agemy, and you're listening to Financial Strategies. Today, we're talking about 7 reasons you may need a trust. And AAA, that's awful. That big inheritance, it just got dispersed to the wrong people. You know, one of the myths about having a trust, right, is that it's for your death. And in that story, it would have helped big time. We've seen the wall of shame, right? We've seen some crazy stuff that has happened because people were not prepared properly. And I'm sure we'll get into some of those stories today, but right. 7 reasons people may need a trust. And it may be surprising to people that these things benefit you while you're living.
Yeah, exactly.
While you may be incapacitated, you may not be able to make decisions, or you may have issues, or in your passing, which is really to help the people you care about. Number 1, get what you want, what you want them to get. And number 2, so they're not pulling their hair out trying to organize everything after your passing.
Right, and to pay as little in fees and taxes and such as you can possibly can, because if you don't put it to your estate in order, the amount of time, money, and effort it takes for those who are left is phenomenal in comparison to whereas if you had done it during your lifetime. So that's a good point, Daniel. It's, people, to put exactly what you said, just a little bit different, sometimes there's 4 or 5 different documents, minimally speaking. And generally speaking, 3 of those are for your life and 2 of those are for your death. And but today we're focusing mostly on the aspects of a trust and where a trust comes about, because people don't know what trusts are. They don't know how to use trusts, and there's all kinds of different trusts that are involved. But, we're going to be talking today about a lot of different things in regard to the trust, especially these 7 reasons. But, I think it's real interesting, Daniel, that, in a survey where 1,000 people were tallied in regard to their estate planning, this is just estate planning. This is not a trust. This is estate, meaning, wills and, power of attorneys, these kinds of things. And out of almost 1,000 people, 23 had a documented estate plan, 23%. 11% tried to create an estate plan but didn't complete it. Those people, right? They put their hand to it but don't go through with it, right? They think about it and they can't. One of the big things I always hear, well, we couldn't find it. We couldn't think of who we wanted our children, who to raise our children, or something happened to us. And so we got stalled on that. But people get stalled one reason or another, right? So 62% did not have an estate plan at all. So what that means is about 3/4 of that 1,000 people, 73% of that 1,000 people had no estate plan. None. Zilch. If they have minor children, that's egregious. But even if they don't have a minor children, that there's things like you said earlier, Daniel, things that people will be able to use for their lifetime, not just their death.
Yeah. So we're mostly talking about living trust today, living trust, and there can be a lot of things associated with this. It's not legal advice. We're not attorneys, but what we are doing is we're talking about this to get people's minds going, to start thinking about it. We can help people put together a plan because we work with attorneys, but the most important thing is start thinking about, is your estate in order and do you need one? Because these 7 things may surprise you that more people need living trust, especially, than may realize. And It can do a lot of cool things. It can do a lot of cool things for you in your life or in your death.
Yeah. And let's talk about that for a minute. There's basically 2 kinds of trusts: irrevocable trust and revocable trust. Revocable trust, you can change them. And that's the kind we're talking about today, a living trust. It's a living trust because while you're living, you can change it. Once you die, it becomes irrevocable, and it's set in stone what you had set forth in regard to that. Irrevocable trusts are for other purposes and other reasons that we're not really getting into today for the most part. This is just about the living trust that allows people to be able to register their money in a different fashion so that it's able to be handled and more wisely from that standpoint. So that's what we're talking about today. 7 reasons that you may need a trust. And a lot of people don't understand that from a lot of angles, but the world, as crazy as it's gotten, and as much as houses have gone up in value and various other things, it makes a trust more important to look at than ever before. So we have a white paper. You're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew Agemy. Today's topic is 7 reasons you may need a trust. We have a paper that we'd love to put in your hands, Estate Planning Myths. And a lot of times people think about estate planning because they don't know what they don't know. They come up with these ideas that help them procrastinate and get them stuck in situations. And we want to get people unstuck and educate you. So we love to put this paper in your hand, Estate Planning Myths. Just ask for it by name, Estate Planning, by calling 800-725-7616, 800-725-7616 for your free copy. You listen to Financial Strategies and Andrew and Daniel Agemy because people don't know what people don't know. Daniel, as we, move into this, we got a lot of things that we want to be talking to people about today. And, where should we start with this stuff? Start with the numbers, or do you have a little bit more to add before we get into that?
I would say that we should probably talk about the control it gives people while they're living. It gives you control in your passing, but also the control that people gain while they're living, right? So when somebody passes away, especially when someone passes away, right? What ends up happening is the account has to be closed out, or the house
generally
is
speaking,
no longer
right,
owned, right? The brokerage account, if there's beneficiaries, it passes to the beneficiaries. If there's not, then who knows what happens to the brokerage account, right? Mm-hmm. Somebody decides. Wouldn't you like to decide what happens to these things? Mm-hmm. And so the greater control comes in by owning it through a living trust. Is you can decide if it carries on, if someone else can run it, if there's trustees who will continue to run the business, or will have the house be owned by the trust and can be passed to the people that it's supposed to. It can go to charities. It can do things. So you have much, much more control of what happens, both while you're alive, but also in your passing.
Yeah, and that's part of why it's called a living trust, because it lives on. Like, normally speaking, without any kind of trust, a person dies, and then everything is set at that point. And like you said, Daniel, the house needs to be, transferred as of that date, and all these different things have to occur. And if you own a business and you die, and the bank may shut down the bank accounts because you're the signer for the bank accounts, and how's the business going to pay employees at that standpoint? But if it's a living trust, the trust is alive. It's the entity. It's still like a live person that's there, that's able to, even though it's not a person, it's an entity that is able to foster and able to hold everything while probate, while everything is not probate, because that's one of the big advantages of the living trust, is that you don't have to go through probate. But while everybody's deciding and figuring out the valuations and distributing it, or sometimes just staying right there. Along with that is like the idea of a car. I mean, in the state of Connecticut, they have on their registration, where you can put a beneficiary for the car should you die. But if you don't have that, and if my name is on the title and I die, it's going to be tough for my wife or for Daniel or for anybody to do anything with that car until it goes through probate. But if the car is titled to my living trust, then, people are still able to drive it, and they're able to sell it and do all kinds of things easily, much more easily, without having to get the government involved. And, I'm all for, not getting the government involved in stuff.
And you can make it even easier, because these can have pour over wills, which means the assets that, like the car, could go into the trust at passing. But you need to talk with an attorney on how to get all the details set up properly for yourself, for whoever is listening.
Right.
But the things that it can do make stuff so much simpler, so much smoother, and you don't have to worry because things change, life goes on. And if the beneficiaries change or a change happens in the family or this happens or that happens, you just have to update when it's titled properly. That's a big thing. You have to title the assets properly to the trust. But when things happen, you can update the trust as opposed to trying to find all the accounts, updating the beneficiaries, updating the TODs, updating the bank accounts, right? So it simplifies your life, not only while you're living, but it simplifies when you're passing because the trustees or the beneficiaries, AAA, we've seen how many times two things happen. Somebody says, I'm going to give it to one of the children and then they'll divide the assets up after I pass. That I trust them. And it goes horribly, right?
Exactly, yeah.
We've seen that happen many times. The other thing we've seen is with houses, especially rentals, which a rental should be owned by an LLC, but especially rentals, is the person who's supposed to get that house, the children or whoever it is, it takes years of probate and they have to keep showing up to court and they keep doing this to get it done properly. Or if it was owned by the trust, right? It would go properly. It would do what's supposed to happen. But we've literally seen it be multiple years with some of our clients that their parents did not title it into a trust or title a property. And they spend years and who knows how many dollars in lawyers' fees trying to get this stuff the proper way and get it owned properly and the tax implications and all the other things when the parents could have just put it in a trust.
Exactly. That goes back to what I said earlier about the time, money, and expense that it takes to be able for you to put everything and take care of everything during your lifetime is nothing compared to the time, money, and effort that will take somebody after you to do it. But today we have a book that we'd love to put in your hand to be able to educate you further. You've been listening and are listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy because people don't know what people don't know. Today, we're trying to educate on the 7 reasons why you may need a trust. And we have a book that goes along with that called 3 Blind Mice by a friend, Scott McLean, where Scott talks in here how so many times you have the attorney, you have the accountant, you have the financial person, and they're all doing things separately from one another and not being congruent and not working together to bring about what needs to be done in the proper way. And that's what we're trying to help you to do, to be able to bring things all together in the proper fashion and connect everything up. So we'd love to put this book in your hand for free for the first 5 first-time callers at 800-725-7616, 800-725-7616 for your free copy of 3 Blind Mice to the first 5 first-time callers or clients. Please call now, 800-725-7616.
Time for some tough questions for these financial advisors. What makes Retirement Income Source different from other financial?
Our extensive experience generating investment income quickly so you can have financial peace of mind, navigate your retirement smoothly, and have more time to spend with family and doing the things you love. Honey. We gotta talk to these guys. We're done here.
You're locked on to Financial Strategy with Andrew and Daniel Agemy.
I think our client, John, was like 91 years old when he told me this. He said, Andrew, if anybody ever asks you to be the executor of their estate, say no, because it's so hard and so much work. I'm Andrew Agemy.
And I'm Daniel Agemy, and you're listening to Financial Strategies. Today, we're talking about 7 reasons you may need a trust. And AAA, have you decided to be executor for anybody? I guess it kind of happens after they already pass away, huh?
The whole thing with that is that it was so hard for him because he had to go because I think it was his sister that died, and she did not have it. She did not have a living trust. So he had to go through probate and do all these different things and make sure all the accounts were taken care of. And, the more accounts, some people, as time goes on, they collect accounts, right? Yeah. Whether it's investment accounts or it's bank accounts. Man, sometimes I've talked to people that have I don't know, it's like like 10 different bank accounts, and like all those, if they're not titled properly, then that makes it difficult, and they have to go through probate. At least you should have the transfer on death or pay it on death makes it easier. But if it's in a living trust and title property, that's great. And that's one of the things that we're talking about, having greater control of your assets, but only that's what a living trust allows you to do. But you have to make sure that the assets are in the living trust, titled to the living trust, or the living trust is the beneficiary of the assets. And that's where one of the big things, I've seen people spend thousands and thousands of dollars on a living trust and never take it out of the envelope that the attorney sent it to them in. So therefore, they never titled things properly. Therefore, it did them no good. And
so,
that's terrible.
Triple A, let's step back a step, because I don't know if we actually explained how the trust works, right? So a trust is a legal document, and it can be named whatever you want. It could be named with your name. Some people like to name it with a nondescript title for privacy. For privacy reasons, it's not more protection or anything. We talked to an attorney the other day, and he said any trial attorney worth his salt would look that up right away and find out that it was yours. But it may not be to try to hide you from a trial attorney. What if you don't want your neighbor to know what you own? Or what if it's nobody's business, right? We like our private. What if it's nobody's business what you own? So it just has a nondescript. So it can be your name. It could be a nondescript name. You can name it whatever you want. If you're a couple, if you're, husband and wife, spouses, you can both be trustees, which then you both own all the assets, which that's great as well. So that makes things simpler. And then if one of you passed away, the other one would continue owning the assets.
Right.
If you both pass away, or it's just one of you is the grantor trustee, then what ends up happening is you die and you're no longer an entity as far as the government's concerned. This living trust that is a representation of you while you're living changes, and it's no longer a representation of you as a real entity. It changes and takes and morphs to be its own legal entity at that point in time. And it follows the rules that you set. And you can have trustees, people you trust, or you can pay professional trustees to run the trust, to run your assets in the way that you want them to go. And so you live on in a certain way after your passing, because this entity becomes a legal entity after you pass away.
Right. And, when we're talking about this entity thing, I know when I first, decades ago heard about the identity or the entity thing, trying to figure out what was that. And to me, the simple way to understand that is that an entity is anything with a tax ID number, right? You and I, Daniel, have social security numbers, which are our tax ID number. That's why on our tax return, we put our social security number, because that's our tax ID. Our business has a tax ID number. It's not a social security number, it's a tax ID number, right? And so same thing with trusts, is that they end up having a tax ID number, which says to the government, this is a financial entity, and pay attention to it in whatever fashion, according to whatever the laws are for that entity.
Correct. So while you're living, it's your entity, it's your tax ID number. Then once you pass, for the living trust, the irrevocable trust, which we're not getting into, is different. But then once you pass, then it becomes its own entity, and it has to follow the rules that you set. And so that can give you comfort, that can give you more control. It can add levels of privacy. It can actually make things simpler. Things that you typically want to own with the living trust. You can own life insurance, whole life insurance policies, right? You can own brokerage accounts. You don't want to own 401ks. You don't want to own qualified plans, but you can own brokerage accounts, trading accounts, bank accounts. I've seen different things where it can be owned by you, because it's easier with the bank account when it's owned by you than the trust. It's simpler for accessing it and dealing with it. So I've seen banks where they say, we'll add this one form piece of paper, and what happens is if you die, the bank just becomes owned by the trust at that point, but it has your name on the bank account. Some want it to actually be owned by the trust. So you have to figure those different things out. But these are types of things that you want owned by the trust to make your life simpler.
Right. And that's how it's, and that's the idea of greater control. That's the first point today, is greater control of our assets. You can control them during your lifetime with better control, and as well as at death. And it's very important that if you have a trust or whatnot and you have accounts associated with it, please make sure that it's titled properly. I mean, we've come across something recently of a new client that had an account for, I think, probably decades, and found out that it wasn't titled properly. The title they had for the trust was inaccurate. And, God forbid, if she had died, that would have caused a real problem. Well, now we've been able to, rectify that in this process, because we did, a kind of a second opinion on that and got that fixed up. But you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew Daniel Agemy. Today's topic is 7 reasons why you may need a trust. We have a paper that goes along with today's show that's easy to read and will help educate you further on this. And it's called Estate Planning Myths of Estate Planning Myths. And very easy to read and give you some idea and help you hopefully to get unstuck so that you can be able to fulfill the obligations you have to your loved ones, both in your life as well as in your death. You listen to Financial Strategies. If you want this Estate Planning Myths paper, please call us at 800-725-7616 with no obligation, 800-725-7616. You listen to Financial Strategies because people don't know what people don't know. And Daniel, we're talking about these documents, and I just real quick want to say, we've been talking about a living trust, but there's some other estate documents that if you have old documents, there's like several things you need to have today. A power of attorney is one of those documents, and that's for during your lifetime. If you're incapacitated, you can't do these things. You can't, somebody else can move money in your accounts and whatnot for you. Healthcare proxy, where if you're, in a coma, whatnot, they'd be able to talk to the doctor in regard to what to do and how to handle your situation with that. A will, which says what happens upon your death. A living will, which says when to pull the plug or whatnot. And then, of course, the living trust, which is for your lifetime as well. So, a lot of those are for your death, but also for your life as well.
So if you get a good attorney, if you get somebody who knows what they're talking about and who's able to help you with these things, typically when you build a trust plan, all those documents will come with the trust plan.
Exactly.
And again, we're not trying to make this comprehensive. We're not going into all the details, and we're not giving any attorney legal advice. We're just telling people we want our clients to be protected from the unexpected, to have as robust portfolios as possible. And we do that with assets all the time. But you also need to watch out for the other blind spots, which how your entities are owned and what happens in the passing. You don't want to protect all your money, save all your money, and then you pass away and it goes to the wrong people, or it doesn't go to anybody, or the state or attorneys or insurance companies or banks, or somebody else gets your money instead of the people you care about getting that money. And there's more important than money in life, but this is what we're doing. We're helping people try to understand how to do this. And if you don't want to give it to anybody, anybody in your bloodline or anything like that's okay too, because you can also use this to pass it to charities or other organizations that you care about.
Exactly. That's a very good point, Daniel, because people can spend a lot of money, right? In the state of Connecticut, if you die without a will, it's called dying intestate. And there's laws that per statute that say where the money is going to go and who's going to get the money. But if you die without a will, guess what they're going to do? They're going to appoint an attorney to handle that. And that attorney is going to charge hundreds and hundreds of dollars per hour to take care of those things. And where's that going to come from? It's going to come from the estate account. So like what you say, it's going to go into an attorney's pocket rather than into the pocket of their bloodline or people that they want it to go to, or charities or whatnot. Is that
not
really
to mention all the time that you're going to spend and all the draining that's going to come out of your pockets, because when I say you, I mean the person who's trying to get this fixed, not the person who didn't set it up right. The person who set it up right has already passed away. But
Right.
you, as the person, the listener who's, maybe you have elderly parents and you want to start helping them get this together. Everyone should have it, but I think we all understand that the older you get, the more you need to be thinking about this. But anyone with assets needs
Right.
to be looking at this.
And, young people don't have assets a lot of times, right? Because they haven't built it yet, but they have children, which is a wonderful asset. And
Right.
and they need it for the children's sake,
Right.
which again, we're not going to get into, but just real quick, when it comes to that, there's needs to be somebody to be the guardian of the children. And then what we recommend is somebody to be custodian of the money. And there's a check and balance between those two, instead of having the same person be the custodian of the money as who's the guardian of the children. And then also keep in mind, when it comes to that, is giving backup guardians and custodians should something happen to those that have been given control over those things. So anyway, there's a lot to be taken into consideration, and our goal is to get you moving in the right direction, get you unstuck, keep you from procrastinating, get you going forward and understanding what needs to be done. So you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew Daniel Agemy. Today's topic is 7 reasons why you may need a trust. And we have this book by Scott McLean called 3 Blind Mice, which be able to help you to understand. It's a rather lengthy book, but easy to read, and helps you be able to understand how the attorney, the CPA, and the financial person should be working together to put together a comprehensive plan that helps you be able to take care of what you want to take care of and control your assets the way you want to control your assets, both during your lifetime as well as in your death. You can have that book for free by calling us at 800-725-7616. No obligation, 800-725-7616. We're the first 5 first-time callers or clients, 800-725-7616. Call now. We'll be right back after this.
This is Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy.
AAA, preparing for the unexpected is something we really try to focus on. Do you remember the clients that it seemed everything was perfectly fine? They had beneficiaries and they had backup beneficiaries. And what ended up happening is the owner of the account died. And so technically it went to the beneficiary, but then the beneficiary passed away about a week later. And so it ended up being his money and going to his estate because he was only alive for a week. He didn't have time to put on a new beneficiary before he passed away a week later.
Right.
I'm Daniel Agemy.
And I'm Andrew Agemy. You listen to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy, because people don't know what people don't know. Today's topic is 7 reasons why you may need a trust. And Daniel, that's an egregious situation. Yes, I do remember that. And it took a long time for it to be able to, for the money to get to in this case, it was a daughter that owned that was the sole beneficiary of all the monies. They only had one daughter, was also go to her, but it took a lot of work, a lot of effort for that money to end up there. Whereas if that was set up in a living trust, it would have been so much easier. And the missed opportunity for investment of that money would not have happened because it would have moved into the name of the new owner very quickly, easily, and been able to be invested properly that way.
This is one of the things that really made it so prevalent for me, because we work really hard to try to get beneficiaries on accounts. And we see accounts come in all the time where they only have a primary, but we work really hard to get a primary and a secondary. And this was done properly, but this was one really weird situation where it didn't matter. It was set up properly,
Yeah.
but because of the way they passed away,
Yeah.
it wasn't, if they died the same day, then it would have went to the secondary beneficiary. But because they died and then a week later, the other one died, the other spouse died, there wasn't time. So it ended up going to his estate, and it was a hassle. We were able to help them work through that. But that's why if there was a trust involved, it was a retirement account. So the owner would still be the owner.
Right.
The spouse is typically the secondary beneficiary because there's special tax rules that can happen if the spouse is. And then the trust could be the secondary beneficiary. And what that allows to happen is if that situation occurred, it would go in, the money would go into the trust and be owned by the trust instead of the estate. And then you don't have to get attorneys involved. You don't have to get lawyers involved. You don't have to get the state involved. You don't have to get, it just follows the rules of the trust that you've created.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the beautiful thing about it is that how you're able to, have that control. You're able to save money because attorneys are not getting paid money that they shouldn't be getting paid, and probate's not getting paid money. Because generally speaking, it passes outside of probate, so probate doesn't get any fees on it. Now, unfortunately, in the state of Connecticut, that's not true because state of Connecticut still takes their pound of flesh out of the money, whether it goes through probate or doesn't go through probate. It's the most expensive state to die in, is my understanding, or last I knew it was. And one thing I just want to make sure that people in our listening audience know, Daniel, is that when you pass away, your investments are not able to be managed anymore. Your investments, when a client of ours dies, we have to take our hands off those investments, and it's just whatever it is until the name changes for whoever inherits that money. Then we can start managing again. And if there happens to be a drop in the market, or maybe it's invested conservatively when the person wants it invested aggressively and the market goes up, and they miss out on whatever the market experience is. And the longer it takes to get the paperwork and get that money into the name of the new owner, the more potential that is for the people to be losing out on earning money. And that is another huge aspect of saving money, protecting your property.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have these 7 reasons you may need a trust. And we've been going through some of them, although we haven't been mentioning them. And so the first one we had was you have greater control of your assets. And so this is especially when you have assets owned by the trust. It gives you a lot more control, both while you're living and after you're passing, because you can basically have the trust do whatever you want. You could give the children certain money at certain age brackets when they graduate college, if they're buying a house, if they need medical, you can lay it out exactly how you'd like. You can have a certain percentage go to charities. You could have it go to your own, you could have it go to your own foundation. You could have all kinds of things you laid out exactly how you'd like. So it gives you more control. It saves you money. It saves you a lot of money. Some people may say $3,000 or $2,500 or whatever it may cost to get the whole trust put together. Sounds like a lot of money. We've seen tens of thousands of dollars, literally tens of thousands of dollars that people have had to spend working through estate accounts and getting monies that went into estates to who they're supposed to go to, not even counting what you just mentioned, AAA, of the money's not working for you in some cases in that time frame as well. We talked about the flexibility. That would be number 3. The flexibility it gives you. Imagine this. Whenever you have a change to your goals or to your estate, right? Somebody passed away. You decided you wanted to give money to somebody else. You added an asset, a spouse passed, anything. Instead of you having to go around to all the accounts, if they're owned by the trust, you update the trust, you send your lawyer an email, you call your attorney, you ask for those things to be updated. And then what ends up happening is the account got updated because it's owned by that trust. You don't have to go around to 10, 15 different accounts making this change. You want to cut somebody out of the will, you want to add somebody to the estate, any of those types of things, it can be done much simpler. And then, so 3, 4 would be incapacitation. So AAA, I think you got into a little bit about that. You want to get into more on the incapacitation part.
Okay. Before I do, I want to let you know you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy, because people don't know what people don't know. Today, Daniel's in Colorado, in the Denver area, and look at where I am. I got the Rocky Mountains right behind me. I'm in Denver too. How about that? And so where in the world is Andrew and where in the world is Daniel? Andrew's in Denver today and Daniel's in Denver. But today's topic is 7 reasons why you may need a trust, and trying to educate people to be able to make smart and wise decisions for retirement. And we have a paper that will help educate you further. This paper is called TR equals I plus G. TR stands for total return, equals I stands for income, plus G equals, it stands for growth. Total return equals income plus growth. This is a great paper that will help educate you on things that a lot of professional financial people are not touting, are not teaching, and will help you be able to understand how to build great wealth and how to be able to have to retire and stay retired if you follow what's given in this. So we have this for free for you by calling 800-725-7616, 800-725-7616 for your free copy on now. All right. So incapacity, not being able to, being in a coma, being whatever the case may be, a living trust is going to be able to allow people to do things for you, because you have trustees of that trust that they can, you'll have money coming in. Let's say you have a pension coming into your bank account and you're incapacitated. They'll be able to write checks off of that and pay your bills and that kind of thing. The trustee of the living trust will be able to do that. When you're incapacitated, you're not going to be able to, a lot of things kind of slow down and change. But yet, because this living trust is its own entity, it continues on and allows you to be able to do what allows your finances to be able to be handled properly.
Yeah, and some of those other documents that you had talked about generally are put together when you put together a living trust, which would also help you with medical things and incapacitation and things like that. But that's a big deal to be able to pay the bills, to be able to run a business, to be able to do these kinds of things, even if you are incapacitated.
Right.
And so, again, you need a trust, you need an updated trust, but you also need your assets to be owned by the trust, because it doesn't do a lot of good if the bank account wasn't owned by the trust, or the brokerage account wasn't owned by the trust, or the life insurance wasn't owned by the trust, or the business wasn't owned by the trust, because you're still the one who needs to make the decisions for those things, and you're incapacitated. So what's happening? What's going on? Think about how much easier you're going to make all the people around you, all your partners, your loved ones, by doing a little bit of work now to get these things set up properly.
Exactly. You got it, Daniel. And, the other aspect there, just want to say, a living will says, when or if you should have the plug pulled, right? Because your loved ones are wanting to know when, what to do. And if you outline that in the living will, which is part of the estate planning documents, then that's going to be able to help them understand how to take care of you better from that standpoint. Number 5 on the list is privacy. And Daniel's talked about that in regard to, because it's not going through probate, it's not a public record. Anything that goes through probate, if you have a regular will or no will, you die intestate, it's going to go through public record, and it's going to be in the paper. It's going to be touted. People can go and see what you had, who ended up with it, and they can contest things easier.
They can contest
because of that,
which is here, your house. So most people own their house outright. Most people do not have it in a trust, and that has to go. That's public record. People can contest that. That's crazy.
It is. And so, people can come out of it. I mean, you've heard of people who win the lottery, and people come out of the woodwork, to say, hey, you owe me that money or whatever, and try getting money. And, if it's a public record, it's just more likely that can handle. And the more assets you have, the greater it could be. And, depending where you live, it's nothing for your house to be worth $1 million or $2 million today without a fancy house, depending where you live, right? You live in California. I mean, I don't know if there is a house in California that's worth less than $1 million, but, depending where you are, right? The houses, the price. And so, that's one of the biggest reasons to have this. And in the past, when houses were so much less expensive, that wasn't a big deal. But today that's changed. Houses are worth a lot. 401k plans and various other plans are still worth a lot. And, so there's a lot to be publicized should you die. So privacy is a big deal. And, whether or not you name it, you put your name on the trust or not, that's up to you. You can decide how you want to name it, but privacy is a big deal at that point. And, I see that we're running out of time in this segment. We just got a little bit to go, but I want to let you know been listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew Agemy, because people don't know what people don't know. We're trying to help people to be an educated retiree, a happy and stress-free retiree. So we'd like to educate you further in regard to this estate planning aspects. And with the book, Three Blind Mice. Three Blind Mice is how today's financial planning process leads your money to a mousetrap. Because so many times the three main counselors, advisors, the accountant, the financial person, and the attorney don't talk to each other. If it can be all combined and working together to be holistic in nature, that works best for everybody. And this will help you understand how that is and be entertaining in the process. We'd love to give that book to you for free for the next 5 first-time callers at 800-725-7616, 800-725-7616 for the next 5 first-time callers or clients. Call now.
Do you have any questions for me about retirement income source?
I just want to make sure I can invest well enough to have enough income, enjoy my retirement.
We build a custom retirement plan based around your income and goals.
How do I know I can trust you?
Building trust does take time, but our investment advisory arm is comprised of fiduciaries, which means our obligation is to you. So you can enjoy your retirement with a little more income stability.
I'm in.
That's 2 out of 3.
This is Financial Strategy with Andrew and Daniel Agemy.
Remember now your creator in the days of your youth, before the difficult days come and the years draw near, when you say, I have no pleasure in them. The sun and the light, the moon and the stars are not darkened, and the clouds do not return after the rain. And the day when the keepers of the house tremble and the strong men bow down, when the grinders cease because they are few, and those that look through the windows grow dim, when the doors are shut in the streets and the sound of grinding is low, when one rises up at the sound of a bird and all the daughters of music are brought low. Also, they are afraid of height and of terrors in the way, when the almond tree blossoms. The grasshopper is a burden and desire fails. For man goes to his eternal home, and the mourners go about the streets. Remember your creator before the silver cord is loosed, or the golden bowl is broken, or the pitcher shattered at the fountain, or the wheel broken at the well. Then the dust will return to the earth as it was, and the spirit will return to God who gave it. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. All is vanity. Ecclesiastes 12:1-2. I'm Andrew Agemy.
And I'm Daniel Agemy, and you're listening to Financial Strategies. And today we're talking about 7 reasons you may need a trust. AAA, what's that all about?
This scripture is talking about, remember, it starts off where it says, remember your creator in the days of your youth. So the idea is, when you're young, take care of these things, because there's going to come a time when all these things stop and bodily functions stop, right? The grinders cease because they are few, right? That they're talking about the teeth, the teeth are few. And so you don't eat as much when you get older, and afraid of heights and all kinds of things, right? So that's why, the sooner you're able to put together an estate plan, a trust, something that's going to take care of your assets, what we have, we've been given by God. We've been given the strength and the energy to earn what we have, to be able to use it to earn friends for ourselves for the kingdom's sake. And the point being here is that we have this money. We need to be good stewards of this money. And if we, some of us want to make sure that some of this money goes on and is used for God's work, right? Remembering the Creator in the day of our youth, right? When we're young for when we're older. And that's the idea of putting together an estate plan, putting together a trust so that it can do what we want it to do. And avoiding probate is a huge thing because the amount of time that probate can take is, unsurmountable. I mean, probate can go really short if there's not any assets, but if you have a house, if you have any kind of accounts that are not set up properly, probate can take easily 18 months, 2 years, or longer. And like we talked about earlier, when a person dies and we're no longer able to manage that account, that's money sitting around for a couple of years, not doing anything. And so be able to avoid probate so that the money can be managed is a much better situation to be able to be facing from that standpoint, as well as lesser costs because of avoiding probate and just plain easier.
Plain easier. Who doesn't like that? So we've gone through, you've got greater control of your assets. We've gone through save money and protect your property. We've gone through the flexibility that it can provide you, the flexibility and the confidence that it can provide you, protecting you when you're incapacitated. We've gone through the privacy protection, both living and when you pass away, especially when you pass away, that's a big deal. And then avoiding probate and the simplicity that having your assets owned by a trust can provide, because I know that's not on my bucket list, is to go to probate court and try to get assets where they're supposed to go. And then what you want to do with it. So I guess that's the fun part. Maybe that's why we save that one for last. What you want to do with it. We know what hopefully we talk about this a lot, AAA. What do you want to do with your assets? People save and save for retirement. And then some people don't know what they want to do. And we always say, write out a list, have a bucket list, have plans of what you want to do. What fun stuff do you want to do when you retire? You've built up the money. Now get in a way where it can support that lifestyle you want to have, and then go have that lifestyle. And we'll help you get it set up in a way it can support that lifestyle if you need help. But you got to have a lifestyle you want to have, right? Mm-hmm. And so we're not talking about that today. We're talking about what do you want to happen to your money? You got this big pile. What do you want to happen to it when you pass away? Do you want to fund some causes? Do you want your children's children to get something? Do you want to pay for education? Do you want business? What do you want to do? And start thinking about that, because this is what the trust can do, is it can make sure the proper people get the money at the proper times.
Right.
How many times have you heard, oh, I got an inheritance. Oh, I got a sum of money when I was 18, when I was 21. And I wish I didn't get it because I spent it all. I blew it. I didn't know what money was. I didn't know how to invest. I didn't know anything. I hear it all the time. People say stuff like that they got this money and they shouldn't have got it when they were 18 or they were 21. So you can put clauses into your trust where they get it at certain life events, or they only get income, or all kinds of stuff. You can have fun with it. You can play around with it. You can make it kind of fun. You can, it's important to some people. Who's going to take care of your animals too? If you don't have children, who's going to take care of your animals? Do you want to pay somebody to take care of your animals? What if they accidentally leave the cat on the side of the highway and collect the money? Maybe they need to check in with the trustees once a year to make sure the cat's doing well or the dog's doing so they get their annual fee, right? You can do stuff like this to make sure that the pets, the loved ones, the entities that you really care about get your money and get it properly.
Exactly. And that's, we have a paper that goes kind of along with that called When Heirs Are Imperfect, right? Because we have children, adult children, grandchildren, and we want to be able to give them monies, but the question is how to give it to them in a way that won't ruin them or hurt them even worse or be used foolishly. You can have this paper for free by calling us at 800-725-7616 when heirs are imperfect. You have that for free, 800-725-7616. You're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew Agemy, because people don't know what people don't know. And today's topic is 7 reasons why you may need a trust. And we we've gone through these with greater control of your assets, saving money, protecting your property, flexibility so that you can set the rules, control the money from the grave kind of thing, incapacity, privacy, avoiding probate, and then, doing what you want to do with your money. That's the fun part, right? Making sure that you're able to use it in a way and that it actually does something instead of just kind of gathers moss or dust or whatever the case may be from that standpoint. But the big key to all of this is with your money, if you have a robust portfolio, it's going to be able to help you to be able to be earning. If you die and, the money can't be managed, but yet it's getting dividends and interest, even though it's not being managed, guess what? You're still making money. Beautiful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And AAA, we know that one of the reasons people don't put these things together is because they think trusts are very expensive. And we've put together a program where people can get these less expensive, work with attorneys, get these less expensive, but also pay with tax-free dollars. And
Beautiful.
so we want to try to take at least one of those reasons away from people why they don't want to put the trust together. The ones about, who do I want to give this and who do I want? You still have to work on that.
Right.
But start writing it down. And the good thing is about these, it's flexible. So you can change it. You can change it as much as you want. You could call your attorney up every day. You could call them up once a year. You can do whatever you want. And the good news is, it will change the trust, but you don't have to go changing beneficiary. The amount of beneficiaries we see people put on their accounts. And then who are you going to trust to make sure that go through? Like the custodian, you think the custodian's going to get it to the proper people? Your advisor, is it going to, right? The charity, are they going to set up the proper types of accounts? Whereas a trust, there'll be a trustee and you can pay that trustee. You can have this up from somebody who want to do it for free, or there's paid trustees to make sure that you get the monies to the proper places.
And that's a key point, Daniel. Think of it. If a couple has 4 children and they want all their money just to go to the 4 children, but yet they have between each of them having IRAs and Roth 401k or Roth IRAs and some other investment accounts and things like that. There's 10 different accounts. So when that couple dies, 40 applications are going to have to be filled out in order to get that money take to the beneficiaries properly. Whereas if the trust was the beneficiary, and we're not saying that's how it should be exactly, but we're just trying to give an example of it. If the trust is the beneficiary, that cuts it down significantly, right? And then if the people have grandchildren they want to give money to too, then that complicates and that pushes that 40 applications up even more. And so it's a great time saver from that standpoint. But like you were saying earlier, Daniel, I want to reiterate, right? This is the big thing from us. The book we're giving away is trying to help people to have a holistic approach to their estate planning and financial planning and tax planning. We believe in that at Agemy Financial Strategies. And with that, we're in Connecticut, at least, where these trusts and things attorneys are charging between $5,000 to $7,000 to put together these trusts and things. We're doing it with attorneys through any state in the nation for about half of that or less. And as Daniel said, if you're a client of ours, we're doing it in a way that you can actually pay that on a tax-free basis, which is just a great thing. So that's an extra discount on top of that, depending what your tax is, 20 to 40% more discount on top of that, depending what your tax rate is. So a lot of options that you have available to you. But the key is to consider, and as you know, today we did not say 7 reasons why you need a trust. We said 7 reasons why you may need a trust. This doesn't fit everybody. Right? If you have $100,000, that's all you have to your name. You probably don't need a trust. Okay.
Yeah.
but
and I've heard lots of people say, well, you get the beneficiaries on all the things and you do all these TODs and you do this and this. And they're right. You can manage a lot of that stuff with TODs and all these kinds of things, transfer on death paperwork. But to me, especially if you have any significant amount of assets, right? You've got 500,000 plus. It's something people really need to consider because it will make your life simpler and the right people will get the right assets at the right time in your passing. Because if you have a beneficiary who's not ready to get that money and you leave them $1 million or you leave them $500,000 and they get it at the wrong time in their life, are they gonna be happy they got it? Are you gonna be happy what happened to that money?
Right. You've been listening to Financial Strategies with Daniel Agemy, because people don't know what people don't know. And a educated retiree is a happy and stress-free retiree. And the best way to get educated is through the experience of others. And at Agemy Financial Strategies, we retire vicariously every day through our clients. So we've been there. We know that. One of the things I try to teach my 8 children is get experience as cheaply as possible by learning from the experience of other people. And because we are able to see these things, you're able to get access to that advice and that experience through the qualified financial fiduciaries and financial advisors at Agemy Financial Strategies. But we're so glad that you listened to us today at Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy. We put a lot together for our clients, to educate our clients. And for those who are not clients, well, you're going to reap the benefits of listening to what we're putting together for our clients. So we have a book that we'd love to give you. And as we close today, to be able to help you go further and study this a little bit more, called 3 Blind Mice by Scott McLean. And this book helps you to be able to understand a holistic approach to retirement and estate planning and tax planning, all rolled up in one. We'd love to put this in your hand to the next 5 first-time callers at 800-725-7616. 800-725-7616. The next 5 first-time callers and clients, please call us for your free copy. We'll look forward to catching up with you again next time. And remember that an educated retiree is a happy and stress-free retiree. And people don't know what people don't know. So listen to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy.